All right, today we're going to get into a really fascinating and honestly kind of chilling theory about what's going on in the silver market. It's this idea that all the chaos we've been seeing, the shortages, the crazy price swings, isn't just random market noise. No, this theory suggests there might be an architect, a mastermind pulling the strings. And we're going to break down what their alleged final move, their endgame, could look like.
So right off the bat, here's the central question we have to ask ourselves. When we look at the silver market today, are we just seeing the normal, messy, unpredictable forces of supply and demand at work? Or is there something else going on? Could it be that what looks like chaos is actually the result of a market being carefully and quietly controlled?
And that leads us to the core idea of this whole theory. The premise is this: everything happening, all the volatility, all the talk of shortages, it's all building towards a single critical moment. And that massive hoard of physical silver that one institution has been sitting on, well, the theory says that's not just an investment, it's ammunition. It's the key piece in a meticulously planned strategy to dominate the market's entire cycle.
Okay, so to really get this, let's paint a picture. Imagine it's late 2025. Silver has shot past $64 an ounce. Gold's over 4,200. The national debt is sitting at a cool $38 trillion. Now, on the surface, you'd think, wow, $64 silver, that's amazing. But the theory argues this isn't a sign of a healthy market. It's a fever spike. It's the system showing signs of a serious breakdown. Because the link, the trust between physical metal and the paper promises for that metal has completely snapped.
This chart right here really says it all. This is the root of the problem. On an exchange like the COMEX, for every 100 ounces of real, physical silver sitting in a vault, there are paper contracts out there claiming ownership of 244 ounces. It is a giant game of musical chairs, with way, way more people than there are chairs. And you know how that game ends, right? It can't go on forever. Someone's going to be left standing.
So all that stress from the imbalance creates what the source material calls extreme desperate scarcity. And what does that actually look like in the real world? Well, look no further than the lease rates. We're talking about a 30% annualized interest rate. Just let that sink in. Major players are so desperate to get their hands on actual, physical silver that they are willing to pay almost a third of its value every year just to borrow it. That's not just scarcity, my friends. That is a market screaming for metal that just isn't there.
So, the big question is, who benefits from all this chaos? Who is in a position to not just weather this storm, but to actually use it to their advantage? Well, according to this theory, the finger points to the one institution that has a very well-documented history of, let's say, shaping markets, not just reacting to them.
Yeah, the theory points directly at JP Morgan. Back in 2020, they had to pay a $920 million fine, and they actually admitted to rigging the precious metals markets. For 8 years, their traders were convicted for something called spoofing. That's where you place these massive orders you have no intention of ever filling, just to fool the market and push the price where you want it to go. So the theory says this proves they have the know-how, and a nearly billion-dollar fine? Well, that sounds like a pretty powerful motive to make all that money back and then some.
So how could a plan this big actually work? Well, the theory breaks it down into 3 distinct phases. You could call it a brutally effective 1-2-3 punch. Phase 1, accumulate. Get your hands on all the physical metal you can. Phase 2, the squeeze. Just step back and let the market go absolutely nuts. And then, Phase 3, the endgame, where you trigger the collapse yourself and profit all the way down.
Let's dig into Phase 1, the great accumulation. So get this. While their traders were on the futures market, using those spoofing tactics to artificially push the paper price of silver down, the bank itself was allegedly doing the complete opposite in the physical world. Quietly, methodically, they were hoarding physical silver, building up a stash now estimated to be over 750 million ounces. And here's the kicker. The very same market manipulation they got fined for is what allegedly allowed them to pull this off. By crushing the paper price, they got to buy a historic amount of physical silver for dirt cheap.
And that brings us right into Phase 2, which is where the theory suggests we are right now. Once they had their massive physical position locked down, they totally flipped their strategy in the paper market. They got out of their huge paper short positions. You see, for years, they were the anchor holding the price of silver down. But now, with that anchor gone, they become the main beneficiary of a rising price. They're sitting on the real stuff, and by just getting out of the way, they let the market's natural scarcity do its thing, sending the value of their own holdings to the moon.
Okay, this all leads to the most important question of the entire theory. It's the multi-billion-dollar question, really. If they are making a fortune from this high price, just riding this wave up as their massive pile of silver becomes worth more and more, why on earth would they ever want it to stop? Why would this incredible price run not be the happy ending to the story?
Because, according to this theory, that peak price, it's not the goal. It was never the goal. It is the designated exit ramp. The whole squeeze, all the scarcity, all the hype, that's just the fuel they needed to get the rocket to its absolute apex. To create this moment of maximum public excitement, maximum buying, maximum euphoria. Because it's at that exact moment that they can finally pull the trigger on their crushing final move.
And that brings us to the final act, Phase 3, the Endgame. This is where the theory claims they don't just profit from the ride up, but they engineer and profit from the inevitable crash, too. It's called the triple threat trade.
This final move is supposedly a perfectly timed two-part attack. Step A is all about the physical metal. Right at the peak of the buying frenzy, they strategically dump 100 to 150 million ounces onto the market. A sudden flood of supply like that would be catastrophic for the price. Then, at the exact same moment, their trading desk executes Step B. They open a brand new, massive paper short position. Basically, a giant bet that the price is about to collapse. A collapse that they themselves are causing.
And if they pull this off, it allegedly creates this incredible waterfall of profit from 3 different directions. First, they make a fortune on the physical silver they just sold at the top of the market. Second, they make another fortune from their new short position as they ride the price all the way down. And third, and this might be the most brilliant part, they completely reset the game board. They crash the market, wipe out all the speculators, and now they can start the whole cycle over again, accumulating silver at the new rock-bottom prices, setting themselves up to control the market for another decade.
Look, the fact that there's a serious supply and demand problem in silver is real. That's not really up for debate. But according to this theory, that fundamental reality has been turned into a weapon. The trap, as the source material so chillingly puts it, has been set. It's a powerful narrative about how markets can be played, and it leaves us with one final unsettling question. What happens when the most basic truth of a market is used to set the perfect trap?